intersection of good drinks, good music, and good times. This is Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations.
I think I say it every time that we're going to have a good time on this episode, and it's because we get to have cool conversations with some interesting people across the music world. And we got another one for you. He's an artist-songwriter. His debut album, Brokenland, dropped just a little bit ago. Let's welcome in Judd Warrick.
Hey, it's nice to be here. Nice to meet you, too. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Judd. I appreciate it. Like I said, your debut album dropped at the end of May. But before we talk that, this is Bar Conversation, so I'm in Kentucky, but I always try to find something that might speak to me about who I'm talking to. A little Never Say Die rye whiskey, because you never gave up either. So you drink anything good tonight?
So I've got Coke with nothing in it because I got to drive after this. I've got two daughters that are waiting for me at the movie. So I'm drinking with you, but not with you. But if I was, I would be probably drinking this. So High West is Park City, Utah. And I've spent a lot of time playing the ski resorts. I'm out here in Salt Lake City area. And most of the places we get to play around here, ski related, even in the summer. So shout out to the High West folks in Park City. They make really good whiskeys and ryes and some blended bourbons and stuff like that. So
I was going to say that I almost grabbed that because I knew you're from Utah. I almost grabbed it, but I felt like this might, when people hear the rest of the story, they might get why I picked that. So are you a whiskey guy by trade, or do you like beer? What's your like go-to kind of things?
So you might hear me say this a few times, but I'm no spring chicken. I'm an old man these days, and so I've slowed down a lot in life, and so I choose my time, And another thing that I'm a single dad. I've got two daughters, and I think you're a parent. You kind of have to. My youngest daughter is type 1 diabetic, and I have to be on my game all the time. So I choose my times to be inebriated very carefully.
You're a smart man. I like that. No, trust me, I get that. I got a 5-year-old daughter, and life changes when you gotta think about someone else and put someone else at the top, and for you, family is a big part of I think of your life. You mentioned being a single dad to two daughters. You grew up though in a musical family that had a lot going on. What was that like?
Yeah, so a very musical family. My mom and her sisters were this singing trio. I was born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, but her and her sisters kind of sang that 50s, 60s trio music, and they toured around, and so there was always music going on. My mom is the oldest sibling, and her youngest siblings were more like brothers and sisters to me. And they played music. My uncle played in bands, and so there were just always instruments around. We had a piano. My dad played banjo, and I just had a knack for it. I sat down at the drums, I think at maybe 6 years old, and I could just play a beat just right out of the gates, and just had a knack for it. So I spent every waking day mostly playing drums, but learning the guitar and learning to mess around with chords on the piano and write simple chord progressions and try and write songs, and just that's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to do anything else than that. So
I was gonna say, was there ever a chance you wouldn't get into music then? I felt like it was in your literally in your DNA, in your blood.
Yeah, it's been in my blood since day one. I was a jazz drummer. I studied jazz, played it semi-professionally at a young age. Was just fascinated with the drums and complex rhythms and beats, and drumming is still my number one. That's why I made this record. I wanted to play drums on something, and so I got to play it on my own record. But so it's funny because there was nothing else important to me. You can ask anyone who knew me as a teenager. Music was it. That's all I was going to do. And I'm sure folks can relate to this, but forks in the road come at certain times of life, and fork in the road came, and it was important enough at the time that I kind of moved away from music and thinking, well, I'll get back to it. And life gets busy, life gets hard. You keep saying, I'll get back to it. And man, it was a long fork in the road, but I found my way back. So, so I took about a 20-year break from music, but always in the background, strumming the guitar, writing songs. That part, I think that's probably the most important thing to me is the songwriting. It's not something that I do to write songs, it's just what I do. So I always have a guitar right next to me, like within arm's reach, and I'll be on meetings. I haven't quit my day job yet, I'll be on meetings and be on mute with the camera off, and a lot of the songs on this album were written on mute in meetings while I was at work. So hopefully my employer doesn't ever see this and they won't know that I was doing that, writing songs on the clock. But
you were multitasking. Nothing wrong with that. And
exactly.
you talk about kind of being drawn toward the drums and being you're able to play them on this album. What drew you to the drums? Also, props to your parents for letting you play drums at like age 6, because I'm sure you were banging on those bad boys.
Yeah, I thank my mom every day. I'm like, Mom, thanks for letting me do that. Just she was the most patient, especially when my brother and I've got a brother just a few years younger than me, and we grew up and had a metal band, and she let us do that as well. So it wasn't just drums banging, it was loud crash, bang, boom, metal music coming out of the basement. For me, I don't know what it is. It's something just in my DNA. The drums, you know what? I think if I was born now, I think they would put me on medication for ADHD. I think that's what it is. It's just I'm always counting, numbers. There's always just a beat going. I'm tapping, driving my daughters crazy. My grandma used to say, GJ, because Judd's my middle name, Gregory's my first name, and she'd say, GJ, sit on your hands. So I have to sit on my hands because I'd be there tapping on the table. So it's just always there. And I have learned later in life that to find a balance, that it actually, having something in the background with the beat playing actually makes me focus better on other things. I don't know how to explain it, but it takes care of that rhythmic thing going on in my brain, and then I can concentrate. It's really weird. So,
hey, I'm one that does not like silence, so I get it.
yeah, but the drums really just kind of captivated me. I had an exposure to a lot of different styles of music. Late 70s, early 80s is what we're talking, and music was in such a cool place at that time. And I have this theory that you either grow up in a Beatles family or a Led Zeppelin family, and I am from a Led Zeppelin family. And I could not get enough of John Bonham. Just at a young age, I just wanted to figure out what he was doing and why was he not always hitting the snare on 2 and 4. There were times when he was playing offbeat and he'd come back on, and that's what opened my mind up to jazz and complex rhythms. Just always fascinated me. So there was just a thirst for knowledge with the drums, which later, once I got more serious about the guitar and songwriting, it's like a puzzle I want to solve. It's like, how do you tell a story using 3 or 4 chords and make it powerful? To me, that is the ultimate hardest thing to do. So I'm always chasing that, trying to solve the songwriting problem. So.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the guitar, the drums. I mean, how many instruments can you play these days, and how many are you bringing with you on stage?
Yeah, so I mostly concentrate on guitar. I've got several different kinds. One of the songs on the album is called "A Tired Old Theme." We actually used a baritone that's an 8-string, which was interesting. So the middle 2 strings are doubled up like a 12-string guitar, but it's a baritone, so you're like a 4th down, I think, really low. That was not easy just to pick up and play. I've got a banjo. My dad was a banjo player, and I think it's one of the hardest instruments to play well. I think a lot of people can probably play the banjo, but to play it well is a goal of mine. So I tinker with that. I picked up the saxophone as a kid. My mom found one, I think, at a garage sale or something. I don't remember where we got it from, and I could figure it out. If you give me enough time and I can hear the notes, I'll figure it out. So, and if you're a guitar player, you also play the bass. So we have a couple of basses here, and then we've got keyboards around the house, pianos, Rhodes, lots of different keyboard options. And I wanted to make sure that items like that were around and accessible to my daughters, and I didn't want to force them into music. I just wanted them to be an option to kind of enhance their life if they wanted, and that's been a good thing, just to have a good exposure. They both play multiple instruments, write their own songs, and they're really great singers. So always music going on. We got speakers through the house, and there's just always music going somewhere.
Well, I was going to ask this too, because you talk about playing all these instruments, but singing. When did that come into the mix for you? Because I feel like I hear all you're kind of behind the curtain in a sense with everything you were doing, but then obviously on this record you're singing and sharing some songs.
Yeah, I think the evolution of my voice was the hardest thing for me to figure out. I came from a singing family. I talked about my mom and her sisters, but their father was a opera singer, classically trained opera singer. And we'd get together in families, birthday parties and Christmases were the most melodic things, 4-part harmonies when you're singing happy birthday. So I could sing, I knew that. But I never really locked in on a style. When I was young, my dad always had country going, whether it was Johnny Cash or that era of music was what I grew up on, was Johnny Cash, and then really more of the rebel country, like when Willie Nelson moved to Texas and was kind of being the dark side of country. That's right when I was being exposed to it. So my dad would have Guy Clark and a lot of those early 80s songwriters on that kind of, I think, built the foundation for me. But because I was so into the drums, when you're 13 and you're looking at what's cool, and you're a John Bonham fan, country drummers are just not, it's like, it doesn't really strike you. So I wasn't connected in that way to country until much later on. But the voice, I grew up at an interesting time of music, because I wasn't really, there was some country that really got my heart, like Restless Heart, Larry Stewart, that voice. Hearing that just like hit me, and I wouldn't admit it at the time, but I was right there at the right time for the Richard Marx craze, where you're seeing those chord progressions and a simple melody over it that make a song, so I was around for that, to hear kind of those pop kind of tunes, and I would say, as odd as it is, that's probably where I learned to sing, was listening to Restless Heart and Mr. Those bands from the 80s that had the real pop sensibility. So, but the older I got, and I've always listened to country, but the older I got, I found that it was easier to tell a sad story through something with a Western feel to it, whether you call it country or Americana, but it's just easier to tell a story, in my opinion, than any other form of music. And I think it touches the heart more for some reason. I don't know why. But so when I started to come back to music, I started really identifying with some artists like Jason Isbell. When I first heard Jason Isbell, it just killed me. It's like, oh, that guy can write a song. And John Moreland and these singer-songwriters, Glenn Hansard from Ireland. There's there's these songwriters, Amos Lee, they just have this craft where they can throw a really meaningful song together and tell a story. And so I have this raspy voice. I've always had it. I don't know what it is. It's not ideal for singing, but I kind of found a spot where it works. And it's a little bit odd. It's hard to sing covers because I just don't sound like anybody else. So I mostly only ever sing originals. But once I started trying to figure out songwriting and singing over it, I realized that it's something I could do. But I had to really work. I still have to really work on it. If I'm honest, I'm a drummer. I can drum any song you want. I can play drums on it. I'm not a great guitar player. I know about 4 or 5 chords. I'm not a great singer. I try my best. But I think that's taught me songwriting around the simplicity of a song, keeping it really simple. And when we do that, then I manage pretty well. So, so singing came last. You know, I wanted to tell a story. When you're writing a song, you're kind of singing over the top of it. And it just kind of came together at the right time somehow.
Hey, somehow that works. And you talk about being, kind of coming back into music. Like you said, life can take you down many paths, many different forks in the road. Like you said, you had put music on the backseat to raise your daughters. What was that decision like? I mean, obviously as a dad, you're always going to try to put your family first. But I mean, I'm guessing that was in a sense, a tough decision to kind of put music on the back burner.
Yeah. It was probably the hardest decision ever. Well, actually, the hardest and the easiest. So once that child is alive and on the planet and you see her and she needs you, it's like, okay, what else am I going to do? At that moment, there wasn't really anything else that I wanted to do. And I always knew that I'd find my way to music, but the decision's been easy. I got divorced when my youngest was barely 2, and I wanted to make sure I was a part of their life. They've lived with me now for a very long time, and it's not something that I regret ever. And I've known that these songs were decent. I knew that I could do something with them if I wanted to. But for me, it's been about timing. I've been waiting for my youngest to get old enough to where she can kind of do her own thing. Because, dropping getting on a plane and flying to Nashville or flying to Texas, it's when you got kids, you can't just say, hey, Dad's got to go to Nashville, figure it out. But finally, to the point where my youngest is turning 16 this year. She's going to be a senior in high school, and finally to the point where I can kind of let go a little and focus on this. And that was kind of the decision. A lot of things came together at the right time. The opportunity to record this album kind of came out of nowhere with the right people. I knew who I wanted to work with, and it worked out. And suddenly, it took a year and a half. It's done. So it's just all been like writing a story. I couldn't do it for a long time, and my heart was aching to do it for a long time, and it finally came together, and now it's a lot more meaningful. I think they're better songs. I'm a much better songwriter now than I would have been 20 years ago. I just think sometimes things happen for a reason, and I'm just enjoying the ride. So.
Well, and along that ride too, you didn't completely stop doing music. I know you were still able to do some shows, and you'd bring your girls along with you. How important were looking back, were those shows? Because one, you're kind of probably making memories with your daughters, but two, you're still getting to do something you really loved.
Yeah, those are some of my best memories. It's interesting because if you play, long enough, you realize that you need to enjoy these certain moments that stand out. And I was mentioning before that here in the mountain area of Salt Lake, and we have these ski resorts. There were a lot of opportunities to play in the summer at a higher level. I mean, there's a lot of places where you can play, but if you really want to play at a higher level and remain here in Utah, there are some opportunities. Snowbird is one of the larger ski resorts here. It's world renowned. And they have 10 different restaurants where you can play. But in the summers, I think they're still doing it, but they would have a summer concert series where they would bring in touring bands, and then they would pull local talent in to warm up for those bands. And I got to warm up for the Deslons, and I got to warm up for the Sweet Lilies, and those experiences where my daughters came, where it's Snowbird, we make a day of it. Those memories are, will stick with me forever. Just the fact that they knew it was important to me, and they've always been willing to support me in it. There was one time when they were really young, and we were just playing on, there was a street market in Park City. I think it was during the film festival, and when you get invited to play the film festival, you don't say no to that. So I was hauling girls up the canyon, bundled up with coats, and they were pretty young, and so they're standing there like partially frozen while I'm playing. It was crazy, but I wouldn't trade that memory for anything now. So
I was gonna say, I mean, that's a memory that'll stick with you forever, and it's awesome. And I know another one that'll stick with you forever is you did release that album Brokenland at the end of May. What was that feeling like to see it come to life after all these years? And then, like you said, a year and a half of actually putting in the work, recording, doing all of that.
yeah, it was a calculated so I told you I haven't quit my day job yet. I'm hoping to, but I work in IT, and I just project managed it. So I just set it all out. I knew who I wanted to work with. I knew that I wanted to play drums. I knew my limitations. I knew I was not going to be able to play electric guitars. And have it sound great like it does. And so I methodically kind of planned it out and took my time. And once the window opened to work with Scott Wiley is his name. He owns June Audio in Provo, Utah. I would work with him even if he was on the other side of the country. The fact that he's 30 minutes down the road, he's basically the ones responsible for Neon Trees, Imagine Dragons, The Killers. A lot of bands anyone who's come out of Utah has gone through Scott Wiley. And when that door opened, and he was willing to work with me, I jumped on it. I didn't have to hurry. I wasn't working with anyone at that point. Since then, I've been working with the Orchard and Sony through distribution, and working with Milestone Publicity in Nashville. I've had a lot of folks interested, but at that point it was just all on me to get it done. And so we just took our time doing it less than part-time and going in and getting the parts right, and was lucky to get Evan Coulomb is his name. He's been playing with Joshua James for a decade or more. He played all the electric guitars on it. It was just a stroke of luck to get him. I'm not in Nashville. I could hire people in Nashville. That would have been a lot harder to try and figure out. But the fact that I got Evan here took the album to a completely different level. And so it just started to come together, and it was really just a bucket list. I had no expectations. The only thing I knew I wanted to do was record these songs. I'd written them, songwriting for me is better than therapy. So I'd written these songs through all the crappy times and kind of carried them around like, that's a pretty good song. I should do something with it. And the more you hang on to your dreams and you don't work on them, they kind of become burdens. So then you have these songs that are more like a ball and chain that you don't want to forget them, but you really would like to let them go. So anyway, once we started getting those songs down, magic happened. They came together. Certain things happened. When Evan would add his guitar parts, he'd become this whole new amazing thing. And in the end, once people started hearing it, that was it for me. I just want to record it. My whole goal is I want my own record on vinyl. That's my bucket list. I didn't think about anything after that. And luckily, luckily people are really liking it. So lots of interest. It's getting played, globally. We we started. I was able to connect with Milestone Publicity in Nashville. They've been great. We rolled it out just like if I was on a label. We picked a single and we set a date, and then we set another date for the next single and set another date for the next single, and now we're 4 months into that and the album's out. So it's funny because I feel like I've been doing this project has taken 20 years, but we're really like 4 months into it. So.
I was gonna say it's out in the world now, and people are getting to enjoy it, and the album kicks off, with an interesting song, "Fascination Die." I feel like though, like I said, as people have listened to you talk about your story, they might see maybe why you picked that to be the lead song. Why was that song the first one on the record?
Honestly, I have no idea. I, I was so emotionally tied to these songs. I thought that I could record them and then just let them go. And suddenly I couldn't, well, it isn't that I was emotionally tied. I just could not be objective, right? I could not listen to one and say, well, this one's better than the other. I had no ability to do that. So I had to rely on others. And as they started getting through the final mixes and I could share them around with friends and family and colleagues and other musicians and kind of get their opinion, then favorites kind of would trickle up. But even that didn't do it for me. It was my publicist. I said, look, you got to help me. And they said, do these three. And I'm like, sounds good. Let's do those three. So, and I'm fine. They were very wise because I think Fascination Die was a powerful beginning, and it was first. It was always going to be the first song on the record anyway. The way it enters in is kind of just a powerful step down chord progression, and it's like opening a door. And I always envisioned that as the kickoff song anyway. So to have it be the first single made a lot of sense, and actually really, I'd played it live for a long time, and not just locally. I've toured around nationally playing these songs, but never had it anywhere to share it. It's kind of weird when you're out touring and playing for music, and they're like, "Well, is your music on Spotify?" And you're like, "No, not yet." But anyway, but it was a powerful door opening because then the second song that came had a video, and that really made it. Just really blow up because people had more of a visual idea of the music. But yeah, that song to me just was a good starter. And if I would have been forced to pick one, I probably would have picked that. So I'm glad that it made sense to Milestone to choose it.
Well, I was gonna say, when people get to experience this album, from Fascination Die, Into the Dawn, and so many. Like you said, you're really showing the story of your life in a sense, things that may have happened to you or you've thought along the way. So what can folks expect on the record, with these songs and your songwriting?
I think they can expect reality. So I'm not your typical songwriter. I have fantasies of going to Nashville and sitting in a writing room and writing as a group of people. I have no idea if I could even do it. I think that's a very unique and hard skill. I watch a lot of interviews, and I know quite a few Nashville songwriters that do that for a living. And it's a skill set I don't have yet. So I don't sit in a room until a song comes. A song reveals itself to me, and then all of a sudden there it is, and I chase it. And it's usually when I'm noodling on the guitar and kind of singing weird ideas over the top of it, and then sparks fly, and I hurry and capture that. And so so I'm a backward songwriter. I wait for the song to kind of appear, and then I get to work. When I've tried the opposite, to sit down and try to write a song, I fail miserably. So I don't know how they do it.
Well, I was gonna say, you're doing something right because you've gotten a lot of good feedback on the album. I think American Songwriter or one of them today when we were talking put put some nice words out there. What's it like to hear that? Because obviously, like you said, you just kind of wanted to get it out there, but to get it out there and to have positive feedback and good things happening around it has to be kind of reassuring as well.
Yeah, it's all unexpected. It's the type of thing where you're you're starting it later in life than you had wanted to, and so your expectations are different. When you're 21 and you're a songwriter, like, I'm going for it. I'm going to make it. I'm going to do it. And when you're doing it at this age, you're like, I'm not going for it. I'm not going to do it. I just want to write these songs. So the fact that people like what they hear, I think it's really meaningful to me because, like I was saying earlier, they're reality-based songs. They're songs that, from either my personal experiences or the experiences of others, and they're based on what I think people can identify with. So I think that's what's been really surprising to me. The second song, Into the Dawn, that had the video. It was kind of the first time that folks had a mechanism, because this was before the album was out. So Into the Dawn was the first time that folks had a way to kind of communicate back with me. And the comments on the video, I've just been blown away by what the song means to people. You got people pouring out their guts in the comments about how it's made them feel and how they're going through this rough time in their life, and this song helped them, Like, whoa, you hope for that kind of thing, but it's just magic. My head's just spinning all the time because I was not expecting any of this. I was just going to get it recorded and let go of those songs, release the ball and chains, and get on with life. And the fact that it's resonating with people it's just magic. It's really exciting.
I was gonna say you just wanted one more vinyl, and look what you got.
That's right.
Well, and you while the album title might be Brokenland, you're a positive person by nature. There's still a promise though, right? Even though it's Brokenland, there's still a promise there as well in these stories.
Yeah, I'm sure it's become a cliche, at least it has for me, but I say it that I might be broken, but I'm not, I'm not forgotten. It's not over yet. The story's not over yet. Everyone goes through shit. I don't know if I can swear on this or not, but
Hey, we're drinking. It's good.
everyone goes through really shitty experiences in their life. And for me, I don't know why I am the way, but I think the honest truth is I've been holding out all these years to be a musician, and that's given me hope. And even when I was in the darkest holes several times that just where I didn't want to go on anymore, but there was a spark of hope. And whatever that is for people, whatever they have, something that just gets them through those dark moments, I think that resonates with people because I just never gave up knowing that I wanted to do this, and it got me through, really rough times. And so I am abnormally positive. I get that a lot from people. They read the lyrics or they listen to the songs. They're like, "Man, are you okay?" I'm like, "Hey, I'm fine. I made it. I made it through."
Like you said, this is my therapy. I talk to you all. We're good now, and last month you were part of the Titans of Americana show. You're able to now perform these songs with something for them to go find. What's it like for you to be on stage and performing and sharing these songs kind of in a new light?
So it's really strange because I've been playing these songs for a long time. Some of these songs are 10 years old. I've been playing them forever. And what's been amazing is the evolution of the song. When I went into the studio, Scott Wiley kind of helped bring a new version of the song out. Evan Coulomb comes in and he makes it evolve. They've actually become new songs. So when I'm playing them live on stage, they're kind of like a long lost friend, but they're new. They're like, these are different. And so it's a new experience playing old songs, and it's extremely gratifying because now I can see, the eye contact, people that are, feeling that emotion right there live, and it's incredible. So I'm just really looking forward to that now. That was a fun show to play. It was a stripped down. The songs were more, and I've got some live video footage that we'll be posting on YouTube in the next few weeks from that show. They're stripped down, semi-acoustic versions of it, just me and Evan on stage. So they sound a little bit different. That's kind of a unique twist on a song. But when right now we're getting ready to start playing shows. We're going to Nashville and some shows in Oklahoma City, where I used to live in Oklahoma City, and we're going to go swing down through Texas and hit some shows in California. And so I'm just really excited to expand the audience and just enjoy the ride.
Well, and I think you folks are in for a treat, like I said, when they get to listen to the album, and then obviously when you get to share these songs live. And it's one of my favorite questions to ask, and I ask this every episode. What's your favorite song to perform these days of yours? Is there like a special one that, for whatever reason, just has, the arrangement or what you can do live or whatever? What's your favorite?
So my honest answer is all these new songs I've written that need to be on the second record. I love them. I finally let go of all those old songs, and I've got all these new great songs. But I'll be objective. So for whatever reason, the song World Famous, it's the third song on the album. I don't know why, but that one, I just love playing it. The vocal part over the chord thing I'm doing, there's something about it that I just thoroughly enjoy. It's medicine for my soul. And not even talking about what the song's about. It's the feeling of that the voice over the chords for me. And it was hard for me to learn. It's that's been the challenge of not being a great guitar player. And I play by ear. I can't read music, so I can hear what I want the song to sound like. And then I got to figure out how to play it. And then I got to figure out how to sing over the top of it. And I had to work really hard to just learn how to play that song live. So now I can do it in my sleep, and I can just enjoy it. So that one's, right now, it could change, but I enjoy that one the most, playing it live right now.
See, like I said, it's always interesting what song it is, whether it's an arrangement, how you had to learn it. I always love to hear that. And you touched on it. The album's out now. If they had, like I said, Brokenland is out now. You can listen to the full thing. You mentioned you're doing some shows, but what else can folks expect from you the rest of the year? We're about halfway through. What else is coming?
So we're putting it on vinyl. If I was doing this like a real label musician, we would have had the vinyl ready to go on release, and I needed to find out if anyone would even listen to it first. So I didn't want to have 500 records in my garage. Like, does anyone want a record? So, but there's enough interest. People are asking for it, so we're pressing on vinyl and on CD, and so we'll be able to give folks that option if they want it to support. But mostly I'm just wanting to get out and play live. It's interesting. It's hard coming at it from my angle. I'm doing this backwards, right? I'm older, I'm coming at it backwards, and trying to get connected with the right folks, trying to get with the right people is really hard. So, I'm trying to find the right type of manager, and in order to get a booking agent, you have to have a lot of gigs. So you have to have gigs to get gigs, So, but because of the success, it's opened a lot of new doors. So what that's done is given me the opportunity to look at a lot of new places to play. The record's doing really well in the UK and in Australia, probably even more so than in the US, which is really strange to me. I don't know why, but so really just looking to get out and play it live for folks. And then in the background, I'm always songwriting. That never shuts off. That's always going. So I've got enough material for a second record, but now that I see that this record is doing well, I've had to put the brakes on it, and it's been hard because I was just gonna load up another record, but I'm going to put that off until and see what happens with this one and really, really go for it. Now that I can, I'm finally to the point in my life where I can put my pedal on the gas pedal, put my foot on the gas pedal and just start really running. And that's the plan.
Well, I can't wait to see where it takes you. And who knows, maybe you'll get a trip with the girls to the UK or Australia. I mean, you'd be number one dad right there, I think.
They would definitely go with me on that gig for sure.
Well, Judd, thank you for sharing your story, sharing a drink with me. And like I said, if folks, if you haven't, check out Brokenland. It's a great album. And Judd, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Really nice to meet you. Appreciate it.
Find more from Hops and Spirits at hopspirits.com.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.